So, today we're going to be talking about the new special worlds that will be available in 2.2 as well as MegaCorp. But we'll be differentiating a little bit because the last three that we're going to be talking about today are, of course, only available in MegaCorp, which are, of course, the Resort World, the Penal Colony, and, of course, the Thrall World. However, I had the request from some of our viewers who asked, hey, how do Ringworlds work now? Well, I've managed to tag into Alpha Complex, which is, of course, the Continuum Fallen Empire. So let's take an opportunity to take a look at what the Ringworld segments do in the 2.2 free update. Let's tag in here as a circuit number 3, which is, of course, an immense band, which is not what we want. We want a production unit. So this is a Fallen Empire colony, which gets a default +5 stability. We're going to go into a couple of the things here from Fallen Empires that have been changed, but overall it should be fairly straightforward. Very similarly to the items that we've had with a lot of the empires in terms of the synthetic machine worlds as well as the hive worlds. Ringworlds do not have natural tiles. They don't have any individual tiles that can be worked. They don't have any special resources or anything like that. So they don't have any rare planetary features, nor do they have blockers. Before 2.2, this was the case where basically if you build a ring world, the tiles on the ring world segments would get some semblance of resources from those planets that were deconstructed and put into the ring world and be put into the resource features on the tiles. This is no longer the case. So what we have right now is that every single ring world segment consists of 50 districts. 50 districts. Yes, that is a lot of districts. Right now, it's mostly populated by Nexus districts, which is the housing units for Fallen Empires. And on top of that, we have our standard buildings. Now, what does this mean? Well, it means that, well, let's put it this way. You can put 200 districts on a completely built ring world. This is an immense amount. I'm not gonna lie. Normally, you can get it up to 28, I believe, for normal planets. But for a ring world, that's 200 tiles, which is definitely some of the largest structures that you can build. It's definitely almost twice as big as a planet and is pretty bonkers, to say the least. In terms of buildings for Fallen Empires, now we're here anyway. They're being controlled by the Ancient Control Center. They generate Guardian jobs, which is the population here for these guys. They're basically the Guardians. So what they do is they generate like peace-related stuff, which is kind of cool. And there's the caretakers as well that are being generated by some of these other buildings, which is rather interesting. And of course, those caretakers are all floating around. Now we can also build the generator districts and the agricultural districts. You may notice that there is no mineral districts anymore. Before 2.2, there were a lot of jokes going around saying, hey, I built this ring world, why can I mine it? It's a good point. But yeah, agricultural districts and generator districts will be feasible on ring world segments, but not mining worlds. And of course, if you're buildings, that means you will need a reasonable amount of support from the forge worlds that are just dotted around the place. So let's say in Ecumenopolis or something like that. But you can use these as massive energy generator sites or massive food production sites. So what you can basically do is have maybe 1 or 2 Ecumenopulae, or whatever the actual proper pronunciation is in Greek. However, with the serious amount of food that you can produce here, as well as energy, supporting a large empire is definitely feasible. On the other side here, we've got the ancient cryo chambers, which is only relevant to these particular caretakers. We've got a couple of nourishment centers that produce 100 food each at an upkeep of 200, which is pretty crazy. And in this particular scenario, we got the class 4 singularity generator units that produce 250 units each. That means that the Fallen Empire ring worlds are actually rather coveted because the amount of resources that they churn out is definitely not insignificant. So you can see the toolbar at the top. There is a lot of resources being pumped out here, and that's something that you may want to take a look at when it comes to your more conquest-orientated endeavors. Anyway, those are the ring worlds. Like I mentioned, 200 districts in total for a ring world is a prize. to say the least. Let's move on towards our next worlds. We're going to be talking, of course, about the Penal Worlds. So, in order to get ourselves a penal colony, we're going to need to do the following. First of all, we're going to need to research the Penal Colony tech, which is, of course, a separate tech. It costs around 3,000 society research. It's got a weight factor of 25, and on top of that, you need to have at least 2 planets in your possession in order to get access to the tech for it even to show up. Anyway, once you've done all of that, all you need to do is find yourself a planet and make sure that it's at least size 15, or else you will not be able to turn your planet into the following. If you scroll down in the decisions menu, or even up on the decisions menu, and there is the Penal Colony button. It will cost you 100 influence. What it does is it gives the other Empire colonies a reduction in crime by 25%, which is rather good. It basically means that your overall crime in your empire will go down by 25%. So if you have a lot of problems with crime, or you've got syndicates running around and stuff like that, and you are having difficulty getting it all under control, getting a penal colony going is actually kind of nice. Plus, it also increases immigration pull by 33% to this planet. So let's basically set up this here penal colony. We spend 100 influence on this planet now. It is now effectively a penal colony, a bleak penal colony filled with criminals paying off their debts to society in labor camps. Now, sadly, we cannot, as far as I know, get a army of, well, of prisoners going, so there is no punishment legions or anything like that. We just managed to set up this planet in such a way that this production center will be set up. There's no production bonuses here, so there won't be any additional income from either minerals, from the prison mines, the Xenos, hammering on rocks, or working on farms, or pushing on bicycles to get the generators going. But you still need to make sure that this place gets upkept. The main issue with this is well, it just basically means that a planet will no longer be available for you to do anything with unless you want to deal with large amounts of crime. Now, what we can also do is, if we go back to the decisions, we remove the Penal Colony modifier, and now it's gone. Now we can, for instance, create a resort world. What it does is, if we create this resort world, it will do the following. It will cost 100 influence. All other Empire colonies will generate 15% additional amenities, which is a huge deal. Immigration pull will be increased as well, because clearly people want to live in this empire. And yeah, habitability on this world will be 100%, which means it's perfect for your species, and also generates 1 clerk for every 2 pops. Anyway, as you can see, we instantly have a modifier in place here. No longer can we build any districts, which is obviously an issue. However, we can build our various buildings here depending on the population size. Now, we have a bunch of housing. That means that we can actually fill stuff in, but sadly we can't really do all that much with this world in general, because, well, as it mentions, it is a resort world. Think about like Star Trek's Risa, for instance. It's a planet where you're going to do a bunch of naughty things. Xenocompatibility related things, most likely. Let me have a quick look here if I can actually populate this place and see what I can actually build based on this. Yeah, we can still build the usual buildings as long as there is a population here, which is nice. In terms of population, we have a couple of workers. They're just clerks that generate amenities, as well as trade value, actually, which is kind of cool. But overall, all the planet does, it's a size 15 rock that generates amenities. Now, as I mentioned, it needs to be a size 15, and habitability is obviously a problem. But it does not stop you from just sending a single colony ship over to a random rock, and your population is going to be super unhappy with being there. But as soon as you enact the Resort World modifier, habitability will automatically be plus 100% anyway, so it doesn't really cause a problem. Plus, the amenities upgrade to your worlds is a pretty big boon, because it means that you can rework your planets and maybe optimize your setup a little bit, which is pretty good. So let's, for instance, let's say we're done with our resort world. Not that you'd ever want to be because of the amenities bonus. But let's say, what else do we want to do? Well, we can generate something called a Thrall World. Now, Thrall World is a slave world. It is a place where, well, the slaves toil and breed for you to make use of. And, well, let's put it this way. In one of my playthroughs, this would be Intern Prime. Anyway, a Thrall World costs 100 influence. It disables construction of city districts and most buildings on the planet. But you will be able to construct slave huts. And free pops will no longer grow on this planet. So it's just your slaves that will grow on this world. And any pop that is actually growing on this world will do so at 50% speed, extra speed, which is rather nice. So let's create this world. It is now a Thrall World, pop growth rate plus 50%. So basically what you can do now is say, hey, I need to have some slaves move to different worlds to jobs. So we can just easily resettle them from this rock, which is it's Luminod, I think it is. Yeah, so let's resettle them here. So Luminod, we need some slaves. So we've got a slave over here. It is an intern for some reason. I am playing on the intern save, by the way. And yeah, basically it will allow us to build a bunch of things, including the Overseer residence. These homes are reserved for the relatively privileged slave overseers, which is kind of cool. And of course there's the slave huts, which are crew dwellings for the population's enslaved population. Now, obviously, there is the usual growth modifier here. So you're going to be able to fill up the buildings tab quite quickly. And on top of that, we got the slave processing facility, as well as all the resources. So turning a large mineral world, or a large energy world, or even a food world into a Thrall world is actually quite useful for general production purposes. Especially if you have a slave processing facility here, because it increases slave output, which is kind of good. It also reduces political power on slaves, so they won't rise up all that easily. And slave huts, of course, for that housing, but they, you know, slaves are the romantic sort. They can sleep under the stars. That's fine for them. And of course, overseer residents that probably will have a giant moat before we get Day of the Dead type of scenarios of endless swarms of slaves running onto the top of that. But yeah, it's very much focused on food production. Food processing facilities, hydroponics facilities. There's no mineral bonus facilities here, such as the production plant and stuff like that. So overall, it does look like it's optimized for food production, but don't hold that up against me. You can always do minerals and then just put, for instance, a... Actually, that's not going to work here. But yeah, put a stronghold on here, I guess. Crime is probably going to be a problem on some of these worlds, so having a, you know, a penal colony nearby for those legions is probably good. Army-wise, we can of course recruit slave armies and all that stuff, so that is all totally possible. And pretty exciting as well. I actually personally think that Thrall Worlds are probably some of the more interesting ones that are being added to the game, because it does give you a reasonable amount of flexibility when it comes to, you know, getting population control and getting additional workers very quickly. On top of that, we've got, of course, the Penal Worlds. Of course, only really relevant if you have massive crime problems, and a size 15 planet can be pretty valuable. And of course, well, the Resort World is a very, very easy choice to pick. The amenities bonus is incredibly useful. 15% plus Empire immigration, because there's a fuck planet over there. I want to live in this place. So that is a pretty big deal as well. Really looking forward to how this is all going to pan out. What are your ideas out there when it comes to these worlds? Are they going to be flexible enough for you, or are they going to be useful enough for you? Because for me, yeah, these Thrall Worlds, and especially the Resort Worlds, going to be very, very useful in various playthroughs. Really, really excited to see this, and let's take it from here. Let's leave your comments below, see what you think, but we're going to wrap it up here. And until next time, take good care of yourselves, and as always, each other.